Hey guys, what's up? For the last couple of years, it's felt like Marvel has been busy relaunching their most popular series back to #1. For example, The Amazing Spider-Man is being relaunched 4 times with 4 different volumes, meaning 4 different #1s. A lot of this can be attributed to the popularity of the movies and the shows, with most of these relaunches occurring whenever a new show or movie comes out. It serves as a good jumping off point for new readers. A fresh start for them without them needing to know any prior history about these characters to enjoy these stories. But here's the thing, everything since Marvel Comics #1 in 1939 is still canon. Marvel has always sought to maintain their long-standing continuity with everything from the Captain America comics of the 40s, the first appearance of the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man and the X-Men throughout the 1960s, all the way to the present day is wrapped in one singular continuity. Sure, retcons happen, they're comics after all, but for the most part, everything from the beginning is canon. Unlike DC, Marvel has never rebooted their universe, but what if I told you they've had? For context, Marvel by this point had lost several of its high-profile freelance writers and artists, most notably Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson, and Jim Lee, who left the publishing company to form Image Comics, a venture that allowed comic creators to publish original material while still maintaining ownership of their creations. This, along with a great deal of bad investments, saw Marvel quickly finding themselves only a few months away from having to file for bankruptcy. They were nearing defeat, so they felt things needed a change. For this reworking, Marvel sought out the talents of the same freelance artists who had ceased working for the company in order to form Image Comics, people who by this point had made a name for themselves working on series such as Spawn, Youngblood, Savage Dragon, and Shadowhawk. Sure, pretty relevant nowadays, but huge at the time, with Spawn #1 being one of the best-selling single issues of all time. They were desperate for a big success, and this is what they came up with. In total, 4 series were relaunched. I've now read all of them, so I can safely say I've digested an entire universe. A dead one, but beggars can't be choosers. After having read this series, I want to highlight some of the core events that happen in this universe, as well as the series individually. So let's take a look at the entire Heroes Reborn universe. Quick pit stop before looking at the series themselves. Here's a comic promoting Heroes Reborn, available through a special offer in Wizard, the Guide to Comics number 61. I bought it at my local comic book store for $10 with their certificate of authenticity and everything. Finally, I can cross that off my bucket list. The comic doesn't have much, it just serves as a little tease for what's to come, giving a small preview of the first issue of Iron Man. Introducing the new character Ricky Barnes. It's just a brief synopsis of a character, with a real story coming in the 12 issues of Captain America. The first 5 issues serve as an origin story for Cap, while also introducing Ricky Barnes. The story itself is actually pretty decent, starting with Cap as an ordinary family man with a loving wife and son who sometimes dreams of World War II battlefields each night, and eventually learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. had mind-wiped him to keep him under control, and that his wife and son were life-model decoy robots. Ricky Barnes is a pretty obvious ripoff of Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns. Out of everything in this comic, she's the thing that feels the most out of place and forced in, with her brother being a Nazi and her wanting to stop him from, being a Nazi. One of my favorite aspects though would be Captain America, with him being as heroic as ever. He's written as a guy who just wants to do the right thing. However, there is a big ass elephant in the room, and that would be Rob Liefeld's art. Rob Liefeld has gotten quite a bit of attention for the way he draws Captain America. Specifically, this image. What the fuck?
Welcome to Critique That Art, where I, a guy who can barely draw a stick figure, makes fun of people's art. Today we have this picture of Captain America drawn by Rob Liefeld. For starters, Captain America is drawn with an eagle logo on his cowl as opposed to the normal A. The anatomy is obviously impossible, no man could look like this, blah blah blah, everybody knows this. And while doing research for this video, I found this image of what Cap would look like if he didn't have a suit on. I thought it was pretty funny and a good representation of how bad it is. 2 out of 10.
With the Fantastic Four, their origin remains pretty much untouched, which I kinda like, and the art is by Jim Lee, which I also really like. The one thing that does bother me though is the pacing, with issue 1 having them fight the Mole Man right after getting their superpowers, and issue 2 and 3 having them get in cahoots with Namor immediately afterwards. Side note, the cover for this issue is just the cover from X-Men #1, also drawn by Jim Lee, which has for some reason just been homaged to in a million other books. For example, I have the first issue of New Fantastic Four, no relation to Lee at all, but you can see how they're doing similar poses and familiar layouts. I don't know, I thought that was kinda odd. The series itself is as Fantastic Four as ever. Everyone is written as they should be, with Johnny being the fun, immature younger brother, Ben being gruff as ever, Sue being the team's mother figure, and Reed being the smartest man in the universe. It's a fun take on the Fantastic Four, where they're trying to put as much of their mythos as they could with Black Panther, Skrulls, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and of course Doctor Doom. Nothing in this series really feels out of place, and again, the art is Jim Lee at his best. Iron Man is boring. Yeah, I just couldn't get into it. Maybe it's because I found very few Iron Man comics interesting overall, but I just couldn't get into it. They combine it with the Hulk's origin, which is a cool idea, I guess. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He's also fully naked, but this armor design is just too much. The armor is too overly designed and just looks like an Iron Man sex doll. It made sense that they go back to a much more basic design with the Heroes Returns comic, which is one of my favorite designs. Something that I noticed was that these comics really like to cross over with each other. Since it's a much smaller cast of characters than the infinite amount of characters in the main Marvel universe, it makes more sense that these characters would be aware of each other and team up, which led to the main course. Everyone loves the Avengers. They've been adapted to the big screen, they've had cartoons, they've had a bucket of chicken. But in 1996, they weren't the most popular group. The 80s and 90s were in many ways the era of the X-Men. Thus, the plan to equal the playing field and make the Avengers more successful was to bring back some of the minds that had helped cement the X-Men as one of Marvel's hottest properties. This statement can apply to any of these series, but the Avengers more so. So this was their attempt to make them a little cooler, and it kinda fucking sucks. The Captain America title serves as a prologue of sorts, so by this point we know who Cap is, but not a single one of the teammates are fleshed out. I put myself in the mind of someone who knew nothing about these characters, and apart from Cap, I guess Scarlet Witch is given a bit of character. They tell us she's been with Agatha Harkness for a while and joined the team to control her powers, but the other members, Hawkeye, Vision, Hank Pym, Swordsman, Hellcat, are just there. They're given no personality. Imagine the Avengers movie gave us characters that just showed up out of nowhere. No built-up, no motivation. It would be like a DCEU movie. Something that is notable about this series is the Industrial Revolution story arc, crossover between all the Heroes Reborn titles, which centers around them stopping a bomb.
And welcome back to Critique That Art. Today, we have the Heroes Reborn version of Ant-Man.
As the series went on, aspects of the main Marvel universe kept popping up, with them seeing events they'd experienced originally and 616 Cable showing up, teasing that these characters would soon return to Earth. The final two crossovers are definitely more grand scale. The first one centers around the heroes stopping Galactus and having Dr. Doom travel back in time 3 separate times. The World War III crossover sees them merging with the Wildstorm universe for some reason, with the various characters mixing and matching with different teams, with the joint universe being under attack from the Skrulls, Demonites, and Dr. Doom. The story is whatever. At this point I was just waiting for it to end. And so it did with Captain America number 13. With Heroes Return, the heroes were brought back to the original Earth, with the traditional status quo being restored. It would take several years for Marvel to truly reinvigorate the Avengers as a whole. This began with the success of the Ultimate Universe, which was in many ways a far more sophisticated version of what Heroes Reborn wanted to be, having explosive art, good stories, and interesting versions of these heroes. And that success grew way beyond that, with the MCU securing the Avengers as a household name. Overall, Heroes Reborn was an interesting experiment that ultimately went nowhere, with most people's memory of it is that one picture of Captain America Rob Liefeld drew. But there are things to enjoy. The writing doesn't feel out of character, and the art by Jim Lee is amazing as always. I'd say give these series a shot if you're interested in a unique but familiar take on these characters. I'd rank these Fantastic Four on top, Captain America second, and Avengers third. Iron Man all the way at the bottom. I didn't really enjoy that one. They're each 13 issues. It's a quick read, so feel free to go ahead and read it. Now, if you excuse me, I feel like I've been too generous throughout this video, so let me make fun of something else. Hilarious.